Hey folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tornado himself, Tony Pacquiao.
And Psychic Tom has it with a brushed up crystal ball. Dusted off.
I'm 43 for one more day, and then that's it. 44 tomorrow. And we got, we got fights on my birthday to talk about because we got a Bellator card tomorrow. And, geez, I almost won a birthday present from the fights last weekend. And there's no fault of Tom's. It was a very close fight, as you know, concerns of when Ortega had two big chances to submit Volkanovski. Just the guy slipped out of it.
Yeah. The third round. I mean, on my card, Brian had lost the first two rounds, but he was competitive. And the third round is when the fight turned. And
I thought he was doing better in the first two rounds. I thought those were his best rounds.
And the thing about Ortega is he's getting so beat up in these title challenges.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's not just losing, but I mean, this was a serious beatdown. I mean, he had all the courage in the world, but it takes more than that.
Yeah.
And I've never seen him take a beating outside of the holiday fight. And wow, just what can you say about this? I mean, you know, coming out, and maybe he won the fifth round. You could bet by that point it was just too little, too late. Day late and a dollar short. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what he can really do. And all congrats to Alexander the Great. That's all you can say. He was a machine.
Right.
Just a cardio machine. His neck was rubber. His chin was great. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. I like the style, and you know, I should have picked him on a couple more cards. I did like 3 or 4 cards, and the one that was winning, would have won if Ortega won. That one, I had just about everybody who got a knockout finished the fight early. And Jalen Turner versus Uros Medic, I knew was going to be the key fight. You know, if you anchored one of those two on your MVP slot, one of those guys was going to get the knockout or stoppage. I knew it because they both had 100% stoppage rate. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to put those two guys in the MVP. And Turner was in my MVP slot where I would have won. But actually, it was Volkanovski people put in their MVP slot. He scored the most points. I think I did the math, and I still would have won. But only Volkanovski would have lost, so he wouldn't have scored that many points. So, and Volkanovski was way higher priced than Ortega. So there's different math. So you had to have not only everybody that I had, but you also had to change out another guy that I had and have the guy Dvalishvili, who was one of the only knockout guys that I didn't have. And I wrote on my little prediction sheet that I sent you guys that was going to be a decision based on my analysis. That was the only one that I underestimated. Didn't think to add on any of the cards. I didn't have either guy. Because to me, it was too close of a fight. And actually, Moraes had Dvalishvili hurt early, so I mean, the guy was bouncing off the walls, literally. So I mean, to call it a toss-up, I think it was pretty accurate description. But Dvalishvili just had a chin of steel, got through the first round, and came back in the second round and just dominated. Got the TKO, and just a matter of cardio and chin right there. Moraes just couldn't hang with that. I mean, he just, you know, gave it all to try to get that knockout. Just couldn't do it. But, and then before that, the big one that I knew was going to be a knockout was Chris Daukaus over Shamil Abdurakhimov. Abdurakhimov was coming off the shelf for a long time, and Daukaus is just really good. I think he has a brother too, or a cousin. Both Daukauses that are in the UFC. It's crazy. Very talented guys. Shamil was just, not really. He was had flashes of brilliance here and there, but he just wasn't into it. He just wasn't ready. definitely needs some more training camp. And definitely did not have the cardio to go another round. He ended up getting TKO'd in the second. And former interview subject of mine, Roxanne Mota Ferry. She's like, a real career girl in MMA, and everybody had Talia Santos as the big bucks on the FanDuel and DraftKings, but she definitely did not get the knockout many people expected her to get. So I knew that one was one to stay away from. And then Semmelsberger was fighting a guy who had little to no experience, Martin Sano. Matthew Semmelsberger knocked him out in 15 seconds. So I didn't pick him because he was too expensive. But I picked the first fight's winner, Jonathan Pierce, who also got a submission win, stoppage, by rear naked choke. And I think he scored a little bit more points than Semmelsberger anyway. That was in the second round. And then we had a unanimous decision. That was another one I stayed away from, thankfully. Nick Maximov and Cody Brundage. Nick won that by UD. And we get to the main card. Dan Hooker beat up Nasrat Haqparast. I predicted that was going to be a decision on my analysis. And it was. Hooker's already got another fight. Unreal. Already signed another fight with Islam Makhachev, but for the end of this month. October 30th, UFC 267. He was very outspoken about the lockdowns in New Zealand and Australia, especially. But New Zealand is really bad. I guess Izzy Adesanya is going to move to the United States because of it. But Dan Hooker was like really stuck there. He had some real bad training situations. He couldn't train when he wanted to. But anyway, Nasrat Haqparast was from Afghanistan. So when everybody was like, trying to give him props for being able to overcome all that difficulty with his getting there, he says, I'm just glad that Hazrat was able to get here, because he came from Afghanistan, and I hope his family are all well and everything, so we kind of turned that right around in the interview and made everybody aware of that. And then we had the Dvalishvili fight, and the big one that I knew was going to be a knockout. Jessica Andrade over Cynthia Calvillo. Calvillo had never been knocked out, but it didn't take much. She was outclassed big time. Jessica was such a step up for her, and she needed kind of that boost of a win, even though, they could have picked a little better competition. They threw Cynthia to the wolf. And then Curtis Blades and Jazzino Rosenstruck. What a boring fight that was. A lot of boos raining down on those two. A lot of inactivity, a lot of dancing around.
Blades did what he had to do. I'm not going to rag on him for that. I mean, it would be stupid to stand there and trade with Rosenstruck.
Right.
So, it's just that kind of styles. Styles make fights.
Yep.
And
I think that helped me get in the the higher rankings up to the final fight, because a lot of people would have picked that fight just because it's a heavyweight fight and two big killers who could knock each other out. They thought that was going to be the knockout, but that was a unanimous decision somehow. But the one I definitely picked right, just based on all our intelligence leading up to the fight, Robbie Lawler beating Nick Diaz. Although I think Nick surprised a lot of people. But there's a little bit of an inside story that Nick tried to explain, but didn't really go into detail. And Jake Shields actually sort of broke the real story. He said that Nick was actually pressured to take that fight before he was ready, which might not seem like much of a surprise to most people who saw the fight. But he had been off for 6 years. He had this suspension that he dealt with for most of that time, and then he also had, a lot of notorious run-ins with, craziness, crazy crazy people. You know, there was some law enforcement involvement. There was some accusations of abuse and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, you know, Nick was coming back.
But I mean, don't you think, Rich, though, that the fact that he 6 days out, he said, I don't want to go through the process of losing weight.
Yeah.
Let's do this at 185. I mean, that's just a sore point with me. You signed a contract, you're a man of your word. It's cutting weight sucks. That's part of the deal. And boy, did he have a dad bod. I mean,
well,
I hate that phrase. But
he still, I mean, other than the fact that his punches had no power behind them, he still managed a lot of decent cardiovascular activity in there. And, you know...
But I thought he was pushing his punches. There was no snap on him or anything like that. I mean, even the Stockton's lap had some kind of effect, but this was just awful.
Right.
Well, again, one of Tony's favorite phrases, old man aging, still undefeated. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't know if he could just say that, but I mean, maybe 6 years at his age. It's just, to me, it was... And I'm happy for Robbie. I mean, he did what he had to do. He made weight. He showed up. And,
well,
you know, agreed to the
happy,
higher weight fight.
but not impressed. I mean,
6 days notice.
I don't think I'd want to see Robbie fight anybody else again. I would want him to retire on that fight. It's because he had no defense. And I mean, yeah, it was Nick Diaz, and the punches were not hurting
2 decades. Yeah.
But still, there was no defense there. It's really disturbing. I mean, the fans liked it and everything, I think, but Nick just had that look of a deer in the headlights when they first brought him into the cage. Like he didn't even know where the hell he was.
Okay, so now here's my question: where does Nick go from here?
Boxing.
Because he still seems to have that Nick Diaz army. Yeah.
Go right over to Triller. You can fight Jake Paul tomorrow. Seriously, though, there was a whole article suggesting that boxing would be a great place for Nick Diaz to hone his skills. And actually, Dana White was impressed with Nate. So maybe he could get him out to the UFC Institute there, Performance Institute, full-time to train, and they could keep an eye on him and make sure he's, you know, on weight and on point before they put him in this next fight. And who knows? I mean, the guy was obviously soft.
But that's so...
He just needs some power. He had a volume of punches that was really, it was impressive. Even if they did not land it with power.
One of my favorite things, when you get to a certain age, you pretty much know what you are.
Yeah.
I mean, what's he going to do? He's almost 40. And, you know, which is young in life. I wish I was 40. But, you know, I mean, at what stage can you keep improving? And then all that talk he said before that he's a more dangerous fighter than he's ever been, kind of delusional. And the fact that you said maybe get him to the UFC facility there, well, you never needed that before. I mean, he was always able to be in shape where he was training.
Yeah, I think it's going to be gimmick fights, if anything. I mean, I think he'll try again, though. Because enough people have probably said, "Good, you did a good job in there," you know, to make him feel good, and make him think that, you know, if you're...
Well, yeah, I think a lot of his fans would say, "What do you expect? He's been off for 6 years. Let him get a couple more wins under his belt." You know, I mean, I can see it, and if he draws people, that's the key, and I think he still will for a while. But he can't keep performing like that.
It may take Anderson Silva having to knock him out in a boxing match for him to stop. We'll see. But, and then Lauren, my name is Lauren Murphy. Boy, she didn't put up much of a argument in her battle with Valentina. Just, the only thing I think she could have done was throw a shitload of more leg kicks on Shevchenko's lead leg. That was the only thing that was going to stop her. and I don't think she threw more than 2 the entire fight. Leg kicks, period.
It's a terrible problem. It's a serious problem for them with someone like that you have someone so far ahead of the pack.
Yeah.
That they're going to have to start maybe look for a third fight with Amanda at catchweight or something. I don't know what they could do with Valentina. I mean, it's just another awful scenario for them. And Lauren gave it everything she had, but it just was not. I didn't see a minute of it competitive.
Yeah, I think Valentina is a secret Vladimir Putin project. Some government money behind
one
her.
of those stands, former Soviet Union, Kyrgyzstan. That was that stand. There you go. My stand lost me.
She got the gun tattoo and everything. Who knows? The main event, though, what a fight! Ortega had flashes where he could have won the fight. He had some submissions, and talk about leg kicks. I mean, he abandoned the leg kick after round 3, or I think 2, in the middle of round 2. Just stopped the leg kicks on Volkanovski. And that allowed Volkanovski to willingly come in his range and do damage and then get out. And literally, I mean, the guy had a chin of steel. He took every one of the hardest punches that Ortega had, got wobbled maybe once or twice. And for the rest of the fight, the only thing he struggled with was a couple submission attempts. And he battered Ortega so close to being stopped so many times. And Herb Dean took a lot of flack for that one. Because I'm not sure if they were just joking or they were serious, but there were a lot of people suggesting that Herb, was asking him questions about fingers, and he was saying, no, that's close enough, when he was wrong. He says he wants to fight, let him fight. And I don't know. I didn't hear that. In watching the fight. But that was an interesting part of it. But Ortega was pretty battered in the face. A lot of stuff swollen. I was pretty shut. And just took a lot of physical punishment. Volkanovski's a very compact fighter. So you have to fight him tall. You have to take his lead leg out if you have any hope with him. And Ortega was landing those leg kicks so early. And there was one point where one of his trainers yelled out, "See everything." And he had that look in his eyes where he was defending everything good. He was looking, but what happened was Volkanovski made the adjustments. And after those leg kicks stopped, he was able to creep in. And he was able to get to the body, lower his head, get to his head. And then he just had the absolute best strategy and was prepared for a 5-round fight. And Ortega was just pulling himself up off the mat every time he got thrown down. He was obviously not only tired, but his head was swollen.
Well, all I could say is in the third round, Ryan had every chance. I mean, like I said, I think he lost the first 2 rounds, but they were close. In the third round, I thought, well, this is finally it. We've seen Ortega lose before and then come back at a last-minute submission, and I thought he had it in that third round, but the way it ended, at that point, my crystal ball cracked. That's wow. Wow.
I was going to give you the out and say that your crystal ball probably showed you.
Imagine Alex coming down from 210. When he played rugby, he was 210 in that frame. What a tank he must have been.
Yeah.
And fighting at 145.
And Ortega is actually from Philadelphia, Tony. So talk about the toughness of the Philadelphia area. Boy, he was not going to quit. He was not going to go out. He was in it to win it, even if he was losing. All right, now we got to talk about the other big fight, which was probably a bigger fight than the fights we were just talking about. Heavyweight championship of the world, and I gave it the puncher's chance last week when we were on the show. Usyk, I said he could do something, and
you know, it was funny. You chastised me at one point because, you know, I was talking about the size differential. You said, didn't you ever hear of a guy named Rocky Marciano? You know, who often gave up, you know, height, weight, all that. So I could see the fight. I was down Wildwood, sure, all weekend. But you know, I texted my dad in the afternoon. I said, "Yeah, Dad, fights are coming on DAZN in the afternoon because they're from England." So he wanted to be the first person to text me when it was over. He didn't want me seeing anything on social media or anything like that. And he was like, you know, man, holy shit. He's like, Usyk put something on. That was my dad's exact words. Usyk put something on him that Ajax wouldn't take off. And he said, point, everything he did was to a game plan. Angles, movement. You know?
It was a Rembrandt. It was a masterpiece performance, I thought. I mean, just stayed in the pocket. And he stayed in the pocket. That's what was so impressive. In the first round, he came out and went after Joshua. And I thought, wow, that's interesting.
I did see the last maybe 20 seconds on the one YouTube clip, and it was basically Usyk, I mean, hitting him with some clean punches. You know, some jabs, some straight lefts, a couple right hooks. He had Joshua on the ropes, and you could see Joshua was, you know, gasping for air. He was battered and beaten. I know, like, the fight, one judge had 115, 113. Like I said, I can't, you know, speak on it because I did not watch it live and I did not judge any of the rounds. 115, 113, I think it was 116, 112, and I think 117, 111. I heard people say they thought it was more 10-2, which would have been 118, 110. You know, it's...
Well, all things considered, where the fight was at, you know, in some of those rounds were fairly close, but I went with the 116 to 112. Bottom line, the right guy won. The right guy won.
You know, Usyk, like I said last week, he was a hard guy for even the journalists to figure out because was he a cruiserweight? Was he a heavyweight? You didn't know where to, because you didn't know where he was going to end up. But when you look at a guy like him, you look at him and he's a guy that I would describe, and I've made up this term before, and I always think of a guy that was four-time national champion for the Naval Academy. Rich, he was gone by the time you got there, but his name was Todd Alexander. And Todd beat a friend of mine twice. He stopped them both times. Todd was a southpaw. If you looked at him, you would say he's no less than 195 pounds. And then he'd step on the scale at 156. Now, I'm going to take I have one of my scrapbooks that I got to find with his picture in it. I'm going to take a picture, send it to you, and he's standing next to their 180-pounder, and he looks like he outweighs the 180-pounder by at least 15 pounds. He was lighter than he looked. He was just, he looked heavier than he was. It was like,
he had hollow bones, right?
It looks like chiseled. Usyk, you would think, is 245 pounds, and he's 215, you know? But he has the strength of a 270-pounder. And he's a fighter you have to like because of the, you know, I would call him the intangibles as well, which is...
Right, he's so together mentally. That's what I was so... He had a plan, he followed it, I mean, he didn't get rattled, and Joshua, by the middle rounds, I thought, was getting that deer in the headlights look. It's like, I don't know if Joshua had his identity. I mean, his identity was, you're the big guy, go in and knock this guy out. Now, I don't know if he just felt, why should I throw hard punches, because I can't land anyways. But by the later rounds, his corner should have just been screaming at him. Hey, you know, it's the fourth quarter, we're down by 3 scores and 10 minutes in the game. Front pass.
Yeah.
Throw the big punches. You're the puncher. And he didn't. I don't know if he just felt he couldn't land. If we putting it on him.
Tom, you know what I think it is? As we just said, there's in boxing and anything in life, there's tangibles, there's intangibles. So you take like a football player. A football player can run a 4.3 40. He can, you know, throw a ball 70 yards. You can measure all that. But things you can't measure is IQ. You can't measure sometimes conditioning. You can't measure heart. Those are things you can't put a number on. And with Usyk, he's the guy that has a lot of intangibles. He's well-schooled. He's intelligent. He's tough. Has a good chin. So it's like you have all those little things in there that makes him a guy that's hard to beat. And like I said, my dad was talking about the view they had with Tony Bellew, who Usyk knocked out in a fight a couple years ago. I think he knocked him out maybe the 7th or 8th round. He came out there and said, he goes, after the 6th round, I was exhausted. He goes, I've never been so exhausted in my life. He goes, I was in good shape. It wasn't as much of the pace of the fight, but it was more of the pressure, the mental pressure that Usyk put. And
those little things, yeah, the little flicks.
And to reference the gentleman that Rich brought up last week, Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano, a lot of his fights, he used methodical pressure, and no matter what, guys had to work at all times. So Rocky, just by moving forward, was making these guys either punch or move, punch or move, punch or move. No matter where you went, he was on top of you, and that would break you faster mentally than physically. Then he would break you physically, and I think from what Tony Bellew was saying, that was an Usyk thing as well. He's there, he's in front of you, he's strong. He's making you work at all times, and your body just fatigues from that because your mind fatigues.
And it was also brought up too, a lot of the comment sections where maybe after the Ruiz fight, Joshua's never been the same. Someone and they called Ruiz a 300-pound Mexican midget. These guys come up with this stuff, but I mean, you gotta wonder if maybe it was just a combination. Maybe Joshua's always had a few cracks in his mental armor, and Usyk just took advantage, and it was a combination of too much Usyk and maybe not enough Joshua.
I think with Joshua
somewhere, but the rematch is on now. By the way, the rematch is going to be happening in February.
Right.
Now they don't know the location. There's talk of
a lot of conspiracy theorists out there
guess.
suggesting that Joshua lost on purpose specifically to get the rematch. So
Bullshit. Yeah, but people that talk like that have never been hit hard by a pro fighter in their life.
Exactly. I get the impression
like that.
of Joshua
I just don't believe it.
that he got into boxing for the entirely wrong reasons. And he's only in boxing because he was like athletically superior to a lot of people, and they figured he would be like a good specimen to box. And they got him into boxing, and he did well enough to make moves and get to be the heavyweight champion. But now that he's heavyweight champion, he just was never that dedicated to stick with it and to want to keep that title to the point where he's like, training like a madman. I think he's just like the fame's got to his head, the money's got to his head, and he's never had that like killer instinct that makes a good heavyweight champion. That's gonna keep it for a while. And it's gonna be dominant. It's gonna make people
I think he'd
fear
have a
him.
career as a bodybuilder if he's still on a box and still. He's got that.
And he was just never prepared to get hit the way he was hit against Ruiz.
More money in a rematch. I'm going to tell you how idiotic that statement is right now. To lose more money to make money in a rematch, you are potentially losing out on a windfall of a Tyson Fury fight. So Tyson,
Go.
2 weeks or a week and a half, goes out there and just annihilates Deontay Wilder. Really beats him up, knocks him out. And then say Joshua won that fight. Now, February, either in Abu Dhabi or, Saudi Arabia or Wembley Stadium, you get the big dream fight for boatloads of money.
Yeah.
Lottery money. That's the mega lottery.
Yeah. That's the Mega Millions and the Powerball all rolled up in one.
Well, we're going to find out in the rematch if it was just a matter of looking past him or conditioning was just a fluke, or maybe it was the real deal, and it's going to be the same result. I think we might see that, but I have to watch the fight first before I make my final determination on how a rematch is going to go. I've only seen reports.
So, like I said, I put a little 20 seconds, and then I just saw little snippets, because like I said, I was down. Before I forget, I want to tap into Tom's crystal ball, because I enjoy doing this. So, you guys know, like, I like this for a lot of things, and half the time they're idiotic, but that's what I do, because that's me being me. So, I signed up for this thing about a month ago. It's called the Rocky 500 Challenge. So, you have to, complete 500 miles by the end of the year. And you can walk, you can do whatever, And my friend Mike always laughs at me when I do these virtual things now. He goes, you sign up for it, you pay your money. They send you your T-shirt and your medal before you complete anything. He goes, yeah, you don't have to do nothing. You paid for your medal. I'm like, yeah, I want to do it, So I said, what I'm going to do is I put spreadsheets together. So I like spreadsheets. So I put spreadsheets 7 days a week, and I did it for 13th, which was my birthday. So I started on September 13th, and I put it all the way every day up until December 31st. And till the end of the year when I have to complete this 500 challenge. So, today was my 18th day. Would you like to guess how many miles I have completed?
12.
Well,
yeah.
In 18 days?
Is that low or high?
Say at least a few more than 12.
15. Come on.
Well, no, I'm trying to think, because there would have to be a few days you got more than a couple miles in. There would have to be. So I'll go in the 50s?
In the 50s. In 18 days, I have so far completed 150 miles.
Holy.
Okay, I didn't get the. I just forgot the one. Okay. All right, buddy.
Wow.
Normally, when I get up in the morning, I log on to my work at 8 o'clock. I usually get up around 6:30. So at about 7:15, my dad and I will go for 2-mile walks. We go a little slower, So we get 2 miles in, and then sometimes at lunch, he'll go with me, and we'll do 2 miles again. If he doesn't go with me, I'll do 3 miles. That way I can pick up the pace a little bit. Some nights I'll go to the gym, and I'll run on the treadmill. Some nights I'll just walk/jog around the neighborhood. Did 5 miles around the neighborhood. Last week I got down to Wildwood. As soon as first thing I did is I went to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, did my ab work, did a little shadow boxing, jumped in the car, drove to Wildwood, got there at 7:30, putzed around, saw my friends, I said, all right guys, it's 11 o'clock, I'm hitting the boardwalk. Where are you going? To the end and back. So like, that's 4 miles, I said, exactly. And then got back, met with my friends, and they're like, where are you going? And I'm like, hey, let's go to the boardwalk again. And let's walk down and get some drinks. So that's what we did. We walked down halfway. I'm already a couple miles into my day. At the end of Friday alone, I did 14 miles.
Wow.
I am at about 11.
Did you use a performance-enhancing substance?
No performance enhancing.
You drinking alcohol while you were walking down there?
Unless you consider Death Wish coffee. Nope. No, I don't. I did not drink while I was walking, except a couple times late at night on the beach. We snuck some. But we might stop at like a bar and on the boardwalk, grab a drink or two, and then keep walking.
Nice.
So, but I've been cranking pretty good on that. So now when I was talking to my dad about it last week before I started putting my numbers in the spreadsheet. He's like, so you started your numbers? I said, yeah, Dad. He goes, you started September 13th. I'm like, yes, that gives me 105 days for the challenge to complete. I said, Dad, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I can have it done by the beginning of December. He goes, you're insane. I said, you're just figuring this out now? Then we have, and when I was talking to him the other day, I'm like, Dad, I'm already 100 plus. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, if I keep my schedule like I've been, before Thanksgiving, and then I'm going to use December to see if I can how much further I can go above 500.
Wow. There you go.
And speaking of other events coming out in November, I don't know if you guys saw, but they dropped the new Rocky trailer today.
What? A new one?
I didn't hear that.
You know they got a new Rocky movie coming out, right?
Is this a joke or is it serious?
No, I'm dead serious. I am dead serious.
Really? What's it called?
Yeah, Rocky. He's gonna fight Drago.
Well, you just already did that.
Yeah. Well, so you guys really don't know about this, right?
No.
Just to be in thrill, I guess, right? A thriller fight.
No. What they're
rematch?
doing is he's doing the director's cut. So all last year during the pandemic, he basically took all the old footage from Rocky IV and recut it into a new movie. So they take out the robot, add scenes to the Apollo fight. They make the movie about 40 minutes longer, so it's going to be about like a 2 hour and 10-minute movie. They add things over in Russia. They redo a lot from the Rocky versus Drago fight. So they're basically taking the footage and making a movie out of it.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another fight we had last weekend. I want to
sent
mention.
you guys a picture of my birthday gift from me to move.
Nice. Down in Argentina. Well, actually, over in Spain. Remember last week we talked about this. Sergio Martinez. Not really retiring over there. He's still fighting. He got the win. Unanimous decision win over Brian Rose the other night, last Saturday. Rose was 32-5 going in. Now he's 32-6 with one draw. Sergio goes to 54-3 with 2 draws. Southpaw too. And adds another big name to his list of conquests there. Saturday night this week we do not have much. Not a lot. Over in Japan, there's sort of a mismatch of the week, I guess. 32-10 Tatsuya Takahashi. He's got 6 draws though. Fighting Shota Ogasawara, who's only 6-3-1. 32 wins to 6. And we got another one in Japan for a couple titles. The WBO Asia Pacific Super Flyweight title, the OPBF Super Flyweight title, and the Japanese Super Flyweight title. Ayate Kaji, 15-0, and Ryoji Fukunaga is 14-4. I had a roommate in Air Force Academy called Fukumoto. A lot of people did not pronounce it correctly. There's one standalone fight in Mexico this weekend. Super lightweights Miguel Vasquez, 43-10. It's 3 of those have come in his last 6 losses. He's fighting Oliver Flores, who's at 30 wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws, and also 2 of his 3 losses have come in his last 6. So who knows how that one's going to turn out. Here's another mismatch. It's Madrid, Spain again. Mismatch. Damian Biaco, who's 10-0, fighting Diego Jair Ramirez, who's 49-3, looking for loss number 50. Gotta have it. He's gonna get it. Here's one from London. Speaking of Wembley Arena, I missed this one. Chris Eubank Jr. in the main event at middleweight, 30-2, 30 wins, 2 losses, fighting Anatoly Muratov, who is 24-2 with 1 draw. That'll be a good fight. And David Avanesian, 27-3-1, fighting Liam Taylor, who's 23-1-1, for the EBU welterweight title. And then there's another couple ones worth mentioning here. 8-1, Jamal Ledoux at super middleweight, fighting Jermaine Brown, who's undefeated, 9-0. Another undefeated fighter, Richard Riahorehe at cruiserweight, 11-0, fighting Krzysztof Twardowski, who's 9-2, and another cruiserweight fight, Mikhail Lawler. I wonder if he's related to Mo. He is 13-0, spelled the same, L-A-W-A-L, Lawler. So I wonder. But anyway, his opponent is Benoit Huber, who is 7-1. Another Air Force Academy roommate I have was named Huber. Crazy. There's also a guy down here named Joe Pigford. What's that for a boxing name? Super welterweight, but he's undefeated at 17-0, Mr. Pigford. Fighting Isaac Aryeh, who is 26-9. That's it for the big fights. And we got all news and MMA left. There's big news in the UFC circles. They made a couple deals. At least the parent company did. The craziest one is they're buying a Las Vegas-based gaming apparatus, Scientific Games Corporation. They're selling their sports betting business for $1.2 billion to the owner of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It's called Open Bet, and they're selling it to Endeavor in exchange for $1 billion in cash and $200 million in stocks, which I don't know how that is legal. You own a sports organization, and now you own a betting company. I don't know how the Fertitas pulled it off when they owned the UFC, but somehow it's legal. But yeah, company has more than 75 global customers, business customers, and 24 sports books across 12 states. That happened, and then also the UFC announced a deal with a food company, I believe, Icon Meals, it's called. And I don't know how many millions it's worth. No, this is actually a UFC.com article about it. This is their official press release on it. Icon Meals will become the official meal delivery partner of the UFC. It will collaborate with UFC on new nutritional support services to assist UFC athletes during their fight camp and fight week stages of preparation. UFC will also purchase an equity stake in Icon Meals. Terms of partnership were not disclosed. You know it's a UFC press release when they say the terms were not disclosed. There's another article that's out on MSN.com. And I think they took it from SB Nation. Oh no, that's not the one. Yeah, they did take it from SB Nation. So, Ari Emanuel, who runs Endeavor Holdings, which is the parent company now of the UFC, is starting to take some more flack with the fighter pay, considering all these moves. And I think we talked about another move last week, where they made another partnership. And so this article on SB Nation sort of gets into it. And that the only excuse that Ari Emanuel's used for such low fighter pay is to point to Conor McGregor and his position on a list of the most wealthy fighters, and the only reason Conor McGregor was on that list is because he sold Proper 12 to somebody who wanted to take it over. So he sold his whiskey company for, however many millions of dollars, and that vaulted him up near Floyd Mayweather for, the millions of dollars he made last year or whatever. But if you do the calculations, the fighter's share of revenue is between like 15 and 20% for the UFC over the last few years. Whereas in a lot of other sports, it's up to as much as 50% and more. And then there's all these side deals that are being made, and some of them, this article actually points out that the Crypto.com deal, where everybody has to wear Crypto.com on their gear on the way to the cage and all that stuff, that the fighters have not got a piece of that at all. And they have to wear it. But yeah, this is a great article. It talks about how there's 5 boxers out there that are making more than the entire UFC roster itself combined in 2021. Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua. All of them together make more than the entire UFC roster combined for 1 year. So that was the most interesting part of this. But they're going to earn $179 million this year, which is already 20.3% of the UFC's projected revenue for 2021. Crazy. So, if you put Floyd Mayweather in there too, with his exhibition bout with Logan Paul, he reportedly earned $35 million plus several millions more in sponsorship. He claimed that patches on his trunks alone were worth $30 million, while Paul says he got at least $10 million in sponsors. So, yeah, unreal. And, which leads me right into this next article, UFC is facing a lot of lawsuits over this, lack of revenue sharing and treatment of the fighters and their ridiculous contracts where George St. Pierre wants to do a boxing match. He can't because he's still under contract, and they want to hold that over his head. They won't let him buy himself out. But Anderson Silva can go out, and I believe he left before his contract ended, and he can fight. So I just don't get it how they were able to do it to one fighter. He's boxing, and the other one, no, they want to keep him somehow under contract. But anyway, you heard of a guy named Mark Hunt? Not to be confused with Mike Hunt.
I know that name.
From the school desks. Mark Hunt, UFC fighter, fought Brock Lesnar and lost. But it was changed to a no contest after it was revealed that Lesnar tested positive for the banned substance clomiphene during a pre-fight drug test. So, Mark Hunt ended up suing the UFC over this while he was under contract. I'm going to try to get an interview with Mark because I think we were on the same wavelength against the Fertittas and Dana White and all that stuff. But I had his back on this one from day one when this controversy came out. And he took it all the way up to the Ninth Circuit Court. And I remember when the last claim got denied. But now it's back. His lawsuit is back. The Ninth Circuit agreed with him. And so what basically brought the suit about is Dana White made a claim where he said that Brock Lesnar was going to be the most tested fighter ever. Something to that effect. I think the quote is in the article here. Let me find it. so I don't get sued for defamation. So yeah, he said he would be the most tested athlete on this card. And now they're saying, the appeals court is saying that statement alone could be grounds for fraud, since that was a false representation of material fact. And Hunt actually put a big statement out on Instagram about it. He said, this was never about money, and it never ever will be. If it was, I would have made different decisions leading to this point. This was about a fair and even playing field for all fighters. Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta, Frank Fertitta, and the UFC never gave me and many other fighters an even playing field to compete. The battle is back on, and at least some justice has been served. UFC fighters are still fighting for peanuts. 16% shared is nothing, considering you are putting your life in the hands of another when you enter the octagon. A UFC belt should hold prestige, but it's worthless when fighters are cheating, and it takes away the integrity of the sport. What do you think, people? I love seeing your thoughts, good or bad. And actually, this was posted on Facebook, too, on his Facebook group, and I put a comment on there about how, it was badass for him to be fighting this and suing the UFC while he was still under contract. I don't think anybody has ever tried that. I think he knew he was at the end of his rope with them, but still, to have like another couple fights on your contract and just be like, oh yeah, guys, by the way, I'm suing you. That takes some balls. And, they have some very impressive lawyers, too, so for him to get all the way to this level by himself on his own singular case, when the antitrust suit is still going after like 5 years, 6 years, who knows? The first antitrust suit, now there's a second one. I mean, I love that kind of a story, because, that's the kind of shit that needs to happen for them to straighten their shit up and figure out, hey, we need to start paying these guys a little better. And they're still out there claiming to be, the best, the biggest and the best league and all that. Making millionaires. Dana White will come out and point out how many millionaires they've made, but like, what are we talking about? 1 million?
Yeah.
5 million? 20 million? Most of them are 1 millionaires. And they should be making $1 million a fight, most of them. They're not. Anyway. Matt, we had some big MMA bad boy news. Jon Jones, this is a classic. Held on bond for court appearance. And he was arrested for some domestic stuff, I guess. The girlfriend, this is the story I've seen. The girlfriend got mad, and he had an argument with her because he wanted to go out to the strip clubs in Vegas prior to his or after his induction ceremony, and I don't think she wanted him to go. So, anyways,
I don't know why.
yeah, she didn't get beat, but she had a fat lip and barely wanted to press charges. But this is the kicker, okay? So Jones got mad with the cops and headbutted one of their cruisers. So the crazy thing is, in Vegas, the damage that he did to the cop car is a higher level offense than the damage he did to his girlfriend. Because he dented the car. It's unreal. I mean, this tells you how broken the fucking system is. You can fuck up a material piece of equipment and be in more trouble than you are by fucking up a female that you're dating. Like, I just don't get it. But anyway, he's had some issues. And actually, coincidentally, this is not the first one that relates to a strip club. There was one other one where he was caught leaving the strip club with a drunken driving charge. Left the strip club, smashed into a telephone pole or something like that. There was another one that was on his record when that happened for misuse of power or something, for peeling out on the way out of the strip club in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So, yeah, Jon Jones, I think his wife was concerned for a good reason, not just about the girls. He gets drunk and does stupid things after he goes to the strip club, I guess. Anyway, the crazy thing is, though, there was a lot of people that had Jon Jones' name and were spitting it after their fights this last weekend. You know, everybody who's anybody in either the light heavyweight or the heavyweight division was calling out Jon Jones for a fight. We don't even know if we're ever going to see him back. And he's calling out himself the winner of the Ngannou fight there. Who's he fighting again? Gagne? Is it Gagne?
Yeah.
So,
Got it.
yeah.
Done.
So he wants the winner of that. We got to find out who the winner of the case is first, the state or Jon Jones, because Las Vegas isn't screwing around there. I don't think he's going to get a slap on the wrist this time. So yeah, let's hope he figures some shit out. Stops fucking around. Anyway, and stays away from the Johnny Walker, who's fighting this weekend. Johnny Walker, he's the main event, actually. UFC Fight Night 193. How's that for a transition? Santos, Thiago Santos is his opponent. 21-9. Johnny Walker is 18-5. And then the co-main event is, speaking of the brothers Daukaus, Kyle Daukaus. Brother just helped me win a little bit of money last weekend. Let's see if this brother can help me win this weekend. He's fighting Kevin Holland, who's no slouch, but he has 7 losses to go with 21 wins. And then we got another decent matchup in the co-main with Alex Oliveira, 22-10 with 1 draw, and Nico Price, who's 14-5. Misha Serkunov, 15-6, fighting Krzysztof Jotko, 22-5. We got a female fight with each of them having 1 loss here. Aspen Ladd, 9-1. Macy Chason, 7-1. And we got Alexander Hernandez, 12-4, fighting Mike Breeden, 10-3. Joe Solecki, 11-2, fighting Jared Gordon, who's 17-4. We got the other Shevchenko, Antonina, 9-3, fighting Casey O'Neill, 7-0. Betch Kohea still fighting. I didn't even know she was still in the UFC. She's 11-5-1, fighting Carol Rosa, who's 14-3. Devontae Smith, who is 11-2, fighting Jamie Malarkey. What was that for a last name? 13-4. Guess he's Joe Biden's buddy. Douglas Silva DeAndre in the 3rd fight of the night, 26-4, fighting Gaetano Perello, who's 15-6. And another female fight, Stephanie Egger and Shanna Young. Egger is 5-2, Young is 7-3. And how about this first fight of the night? Boy, number of fights between these two. 21-8 with 1 draw for Alejandro Perez going up against Johnny Eduardo, who's 28-12. Ridiculous records there for a first fight. That's a lot of experience. We'll have to do a deep dive into the analysis on this one before we do our FanDuel card. But it's one of 2 big fights this weekend. Bellator 267. Lima versus MVP 2. That one's tomorrow night. That's my birthday fight. We're going to end on a political boxing story, believe it or not, as we get through this card. Main event, Bellator 267, Douglas Lima and Michael Page. Douglas 32-9, Michael 19-1. And we got a co-main event female fight. Leah McCourt's 5-1, fighting Jessica Borga, who's 3-3. We got Robert Whiteford, 16-4, fighting Andrew Fisher, who's 18-8 with 1 draw. Luke Traynor, 4-0, fighting Yannick Bahati, who's 9-5. Yves Landau, 16-8, fighting Tim Wild, who's 13-4. Louis Long, 18-6, fighting Michael Dubois, who's 10-7. Kane Musa, 13-3, fighting Davey Gallen, who's 18-7. And here's a story about Andre Berto. Not too happy with Joe Biden. Surprise, surprise, right? He wants him to get up and do something about the border crisis. And he wants to find out why Afghanistan refugees are being flown all the way to the United States with no problems. But Haitians who are trying to get into the United States are being flown back to Haiti. He doesn't understand what the deal with that is. Especially when we come to find out that a lot of these Haitians actually were not just like storming the border like has been described. They've actually been down in Mexico for a year or more, some of them, trying to get into the United States through asylum. But, you know, you got to go through all this processing and all this other stuff, you know, and they obviously didn't anticipate for this and hire more Border Patrol people to handle it. So you're going to have illegal crossing because these people just get sick of trying to wait. So, yeah, Andre Berto is really mad. Must that be from Haitian descent. He says, I just want equal treatment. You saw what they did with the Afghan refugees. That's pretty much brought up over here on a... They pretty much were brought up over here on a red carpet type of situation. I believe that Biden definitely needs to step up and to really show us that he really cares. And,
well, I'm sure Biden's going to be moving, snapping to after that order.
His own party hates him right now. Jeez, he can't even get anything done. I mean, it's just wondering if somebody's willing to throw a few $1 trillion here, a few $1 trillion there. I mean, what's the harm, right? Actually, right before the show, I was tuned into Hannity. And you know how they usually pass these bills without even reading them. Well, Hannity said something that really disturbed me, because apparently there must be some kind of death tax in there, or an estate tax coming back, because he said something about...
you're talking about the stepped-up basis.
Oh. I guess this one of these 3.5 or $1.2 trillion bills, whatever they're trying to pass, there's something in it where it's like 61 cents of every dollar in your bank account when you die pays for this, is what he said on the show. And I was just like, what? I don't know if he's exaggerating or I don't know how they could do something like that. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff they're cooking up in the kitchen. And they wonder why a guy like Joe Manchin comes out and says, my number is 1.5 trillion, and the progressives just lose their minds. It's been like actually entertaining watching CNN these days, because the anchors are losing their minds too. They don't know what to do. And then between that and their failed attempts to get everybody vaccinated, like they literally are having meltdowns over there on a daily basis. I don't see this boding well for the Democratic Party over the long run.
Depends who's counting the votes.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Oh boy. And that's the whole thing. Like, it was unbelievable. Tonight, CNN had a whole piece on how the replacement theory is a conspiracy theory of how, you know, all these people and the lax idea of border security is going to lead to more Biden votes. I mean, we've been saying that on this show for like years.
Well, of course.
Years. I think a lot of people have been saying that. But now they're posing it as if it's some right-wing conspiracy theory that has no basis in fact. Like, no Democrat is out there wanting more people to come over the border solely for a vote. Come on now.
Of course not. Democrats would never do that. That is pure gaslighting.
Yeah,
you know?
Whatever. I couldn't believe it when I was just like, Jesus, how far will these people go? And then they talk about how, you got to be careful of what you hear on Fox News because, they're all owned by Republicans. Well, who the hell owns CNN? Right. Democratic interests. So
right.
Don't even try it. Unreal.
Oh, Rich, while we're on this topic, did you hear of Taylor Lee? Are you familiar with that story?
Did I hear what?
Taylor Lee, the FDA economist, who said that the best way we can get black people vaccinated is to blow dart them. Google that. That's a fun Google. This Project Veritas puts these. It's fascinating how they'll do this. They usually get beautiful young women, but this was a guy there because I think this Taylor Lee preferred guys, and they're having lunch, and he gets him to open up on this, and he said, black people are reluctant to this, but we'll just use blow darts, or we'll get blowns and jab them that way. And he went on for about 15 minutes, and it's all recorded. Well, then the next day, and then he kept saying like an idiot, well, if you're an undercover journalist, you can't quote me on this. Right. So the next day, a black journalist from Project Veritas confronted him in the bar, real polite and professional, and he said, yeah, Mr. Lee, would you like to take a look at this video? If I'm not vaccinated, would you like to have me hit with the blow dart? And then they asked him, while the guy was undercover, and saying, hey, how are we going to get these black people vaccinated so we can get back to normal? And he said, well, we can either use blow darts or we can get a whole tribe from the Amazon to come up with blow darts and hit them with blow darts. So now I'm telling you guys, I'm not making this up. Google Taylor Lee, FDA economist, and you'll see the videos yourself. It's just a classic.
Oh, that's nuts.
Blow darts, blow guy.
Yeah, I found actually the guy that runs a health food store here in the Lakes region was a good friend of my dad. Sent me this real long document from a military doctor, and it basically goes into detail about how that the vaccine has not been adequately tested to the point where we know what it's going to do to the population that really needs it, which is the unhealthy population that has immune deficiencies and everything, and they actually need it, but it's being mandated for all government employees. So this woman was really concerned about what it could do when it's put into a population that doesn't need it, like fighter pilots, and flight personnel, which are in the best conditions possible. They're the most fit people on the planet usually. So especially the guys that are flying fighter jets with G-forces and everything. So it's kind of ridiculous for them to ask for the vaccine for everybody to be vaccinated in that situation. So it's just a fascinating piece of medical journalism, I think. But it's in an affidavit form, so it's sworn testimony too. On top of that. But aside from that, there was another thing on CNN I saw today that really surprised me. They're finally admitting that immunity from actually getting COVID is a little bit better than the vaccinated immunity. Actually, Sanjay Gupta himself, the big expert, said it after they've been telling people and shaming them on air who have had COVID to go get the vaccine. But they did pull a fast one at the end of the whole statement of telling you that natural immunity is better than vaccinated. They said I think the data will show that if you've had COVID, you could still benefit greatly from at least one shot.
At least,
yeah.
And even better, 2 or 3, and then eventually the monthly boosters, and then the weekly ones.
It wouldn't bother me so much if they didn't change the damn narrative so many times. It just goes back.
Move the goalposts.
Yeah, it goes back to when, Fauci was like, well, everybody needs to wear face coverings of some kind. And then, well, no, we don't, that really won't protect us the next day. And then the next day, well, everybody needs to wear N95 masks. Crazy. Now they're not mandating. If they're mandating masks, they're not mandating N95s. You know, so now it's right back to when they started. Just wear a face covering.
I will believe they're serious when they start vaccinating all the illegal immigrants. But you notice they're off limits.
Yeah.
They don't have to get the jab. You gotta wonder what's in that thing.
There's a comic somebody sent me of.
Just gotta wonder. That's not a word about that.
There's a political cartoon of a veteran going, "Geez, what am I gonna do for my health care?" You know, and then it shows him crossing the border. He says, "I'm a Haitian immigrant," or whatever. You know, so, "Oh, come right this way."
Yeah.
We'll set you right up. Ridiculous. All right. Well, I guess we're diverting
Well, hey, we
into
got to give a
politics.
shout out to Manny Pacquiao on his well-deserved retirement and his political aspirations. He's running for the president of the Philippines, and you know what? Unless something crazy happens, you know he's going to win that in a landslide. His opponent's family will probably be voting for him.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, Tom, if you were over in the Philippines right now, would you want to run against him?
No.
That would be like numbers like Reagan Mondale.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
worse. And Tom, you've been around, you know, a little bit longer than us. Was that the most lopsided presidential election of all time?
It was close to the McGovern one. I know as far as states, I think McGovern only won about 2 states, and I think Mondale just won Minnesota.
Yeah, he won
then maybe
state, like up there was like, you're right, it might have been Minnesota. It was like Minnesota or Wisconsin or something.
Well, that's Mondale's home state. Right. Yeah.
I remember Mondale as a kid because
Mondale had a very negative aura.
Yeah. Well, he had a good commercial at one point because
I
I remember watching his commercial on TV, and then we were at the dinner table as kids. I must have been like 5 or 6, and my dad asked us all who we were going to vote for or whatever. Like we were going to actually vote as kids, and so I was like, I like Mondale because I saw his commercial, and he laughed at me so hard. Like I had 3 heads. He's like,
you're grounded.
He's like, why? And I go, I don't know. He sounded good on TV.
Yeah, he says, yes, I'm going to raise your taxes. And yeah, it was a terrible campaign for him. And then Geraldine Ferraro, I remember I was living in L.A. then, and she was coming out to L.A. to give a talk. And oh, boy, those were the days. What a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, the 80s were a lot of fun, man. 80s were a lot of them. I'm glad I grew up in the 80s. I mean, bad hair, bad style. Well, it's still not bad hair, big hair. Big hair, big style, loud. You know, but I'm going to tell you one thing about the 80s, and, you know, and it's kind of, you know, coinciding with, I just sent you the trailer for the new Rocky IV director's cut. The 80s was such a, I would say, like
What happened?
felt like we could think, and it was like everything happened almost all at once. We came out of a real tough time, and it started with with the U.S. Olympic hockey team, you know, winning in 1980. Then you had, you know, Reagan came in there, and he was like a very optimistic kind of guy. And then even a lot of the big things of the 80s, you had like the big Hulk Hogan boom at the time. But it was like, we can beat anybody, you know. We won the Cold War. It's like, you know, nothing that could stop us. You know, you felt
exactly. Everything was exaggerated. Awesome was the word back then. No pain, no gain. Even in the workouts, I mean, you can never do enough. And it was. As far as money, you can never have enough. It was an exciting time. Definitely an exciting time. Be nice to see another decade like that, but I don't know if we'll see that in my lifetime. It depends on all this biohacking stuff I'm doing. We'll see. If I get extra longevity, maybe.
All right.
But the odds of old man aging is still going to be undefeated.
What are you on the C?
I'm doing, but I'm trying. I'm trying all kinds of stuff.
Are you on that C60 stuff yet? Tom?
Yeah, the what?
Carbon 60?
What?
Carbon 60? Have you ever heard of that?
No. My new one now is rapamycin. That's about the strongest thing going. And it's kind of a risky thing because it was discovered on Easter Island with those big statues, and some biologists were and some geologists were isolated it in the soil, and they found that when they would give it to mice and fruit flies, it actually reversed their aging.
Huh. Well,
so it was patented as a drug to tamp down your immune system if you have a transplant, because sometimes if you get a heart transplant or a liver transplant, any organ transplant, your immune system doesn't recognize it, and so you have to have massive doses of this. So it's kind of a sweet spot. If you're taking it for anti-aging, if you take too much, you die. Because but there's a canary in the coal mine that you get cold sores, and that's the first sign that there's a problem. But 5 milligrams a week is supposedly it. There's some interesting articles on it. Google it. So, about to end my first month of a cycle of it. So we'll see if it works. Got to keep trying.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I got to take my last cycle of 714X that I have in the fridge before December, because it expires. But yeah, it's good to have it before the the winter season with the flu and the pandemic going around. But anyway, yeah, good luck with that. Don't take too much.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Oh no, I monitor myself, and I get a lot of blood work, and so we'll see.
Nice.
See what happens. I'm trying quite a few other things, fasting and all that other good stuff. Air filters, water filters, saunas. I'm doing it all. So we'll see.
Well, one other quick story I wanted to mention before we sign off. I only saw it on the ticker at the bottom of the ESPN Sports Center today. But apparently there's a big scandal that's been uncovered on the 2016 Olympics where fighters were predetermined. Winners of fights were predetermined by judges. They somehow can't figure out who initiated the whole thing. But they've got the judges confirming supposedly that they had the fights decided the day before the fights happened. They were decided. So I don't know how far it went. I haven't looked it up, but yeah, I guess we'll talk about that next week.
I'm sure Roy Jones Jr. would be shocked. I'm sure Roy would really be shocked to hear that.
Yeah, unreal. So I don't know, but I'll look into it, and we'll talk more about it next week. Also, another quick story.
All right, guys.
Amanda Serrano just signed with Jake Paul's Most Valuable Promotions. Former guest of ours and absolute phenom in female boxing. So I guess that's good for her.
Good for her.
All right, till next week.
All right, guys. Enjoy the fight.
Have a good weekend, guys. All right, later.